afternoon or evening. Thank you for checking out the Sportsline podcast on CHCH. I'm Bubba O'Neill. For those that are familiar or unfamiliar, once in a wee while, we'll step away from the amazing personal sports stories our region has to offer in exchange for lively sports discussion. Welcome to the Sportsline Square Off, and today's guest, I think it's a real firecracker from our very own ratings-topping, award-winning CHCH Morning Live program. Let's bring in co-anchor Tim Bolen. Oh, God, he's ready to go. You're all fired up. You got notes, and you're throwing punches.
Well, when did you talk to me? You talked to me on Monday. You're like, we gotta have a square off because there's so much, and that was on Monday.
Yeah.
And like even we're 2 days later, and there's so much more that we can get into.
Isn't it amazing? The sports wheel. I mean, it's supposed to be rather slow right now, but it just has been spinning. Like, it really has been no release. I always thought, in the history of being in this industry, that after the NBA finals and the NHL finals, it really does calm down. We just talk about baseball, CFL a little bit, but everything's been coming through in the Olympics, and it's just been nonstop, Tim.
Yeah. Well, there's so much good stuff. I was telling you too. I was and even locally, Scott Radley, who's a pal of ours, right? Great article this morning in the Spec talking about the arena renos and how those are coming along. And there's a certain somebody. It didn't name this certain somebody, but it actually was based around City Council because they had a meeting earlier this week talking about how the renos were going and everything's looking good. But a local sports star might be interested in the rentals that are happening.
Well, I mean, that building costs a lot of money to refurbish itself. The only person I could think of making that kind of money plays in the NBA.
Yeah. Well, in the article, and I love this. I love how Scott writes it. He says this individual is a potential NBA MVP, just came back from the Olympics and hails from Hamilton.
Why didn't he just say his name?
Because they didn't say his name.
Oh.
In City Council, they did not say Shea's name.
Right.
Obviously, we all know who it's Shea, and SGA has interest in possibly some co-ownership into the new building. What are you calling this new building? Is First Ontario Centre renos? Like, what are we saying there? Because we know it's not going to be First Ontario Centre going forward.
No.
There's going to be a new name to it. They're calling it, like OVG Group is calling it like the Hamilton Arena builds.
Yeah, I can't. It's called the SGA Center.
Yeah. Right.
There's your naming rights right there. Right, and you can afford it.
Yeah.
The SGA Center, right in the hammer.
Yeah. The arena the SGA built.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be something? Wow, that's a lot of fun, and it just gets us a little closer to the fact of, like, when are these teams or proposed sports teams going to be stepping in?
Well, even within the article too, it said that they were locking some dates into late 2025 for some possibility of concerts. So that goes to show the timeline is kind of working out what they kind of thought, where we're late 2025. They want to do an opening of this new facility, right? Because if you're going to be locking in bands and things, like, it has to be done. You're locking somebody in there, so everything is kind of looking pretty good. So excited to see what happens and who the new tenants could be.
This is the ultimate stay tuned situation.
Yeah.
In the meantime, let's square off. Austin Matthews is the new Maple Leafs captain. John Tavares, was he stripped? Did he really just step aside? Did he have a lot to do in terms of the transition? What's going on there?
He did not. Well, he didn't step aside. Who would step aside? He got stripped. His captaincy got stripped. MLSE is a business. They know what's going on. They want to change the business model. When your highest paid player, Austin Matthews, who is soon to become the highest paid player in the NHL this season, over $13 million, they want him as the face of the organization. They want him as the captain of your team. Hey, Johnny boy. Too bad, so sad. We got to take that away from you.
I mean, can I say this? Is the captaincy in the National Hockey League the most overrated thing? Like, who's the captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Easy.
That's easy. Okay, but then I can say, who's the captain of the Montreal Canadiens right now?
Oh, isn't it?
There you go, right? There's the answer right there. Like it's
that's just my memory loss. That's what's kicking in there.
Yeah, but I think
Suzuki. It's Suzuki.
There you go. But there was a lot of people that just did what you did. Like, I mean, obvious. There's places like Edmonton. Yes, places like Pittsburgh. Probably horrible example. Who's the captain in Columbus? I just don't know. What does it mean? Like, does it do anything?
An Original Six franchise having the best player. Okay, let's not.
He is the best player on the Leafs.
I was going to say best player in the league. That's a whole other thing.
Right.
There's a lot of other fans that are debating you on that, and I think Connor McDavid is the best player in the league. Mm-hmm. But when you have the best player, I think they do need to have that captaincy. That C on them. It was interesting that I was able to get a former Leaf captain on the show this morning, Rick Five, who was the captain of the Leafs through those awful years, those Harold Ballard years from 1982 to 1986. And he got his captaincy taken away from him. And he told us the story. And if you don't know, it was, where were they playing? He told me this morning. They were away, and he slept in for a practice. And Harold Ballard, they took the captaincy away from him for that incident. And I said, how did you take it? And he said, not well.
There you go.
He didn't take it well. Now, at the same breath, I was talking about John Tavares and how he would be taking it, and he said, John is a professional, which we all know. Yes. John is a professional.
Very classy guy.
I'm very interested to see if he's at the press conference talking about this, because they approached him about it and wanted to pass the captaincy on to Auston Matthews. He'll say all the John Tavares things and all the cliches because that's how he talks. Yep. And he has been a good captain in the 5 years that he's been doing it. If you recall, let's go back though. Before that, when John first arrived, there was no captain, right? It was Auston Matthews' second year. Yep. And remember that incident that took place in Arizona? There was that.
He would have been the captain if that didn't happen. It would have been a public relations disaster of this captain, of the guy that was pulling his pants down in Arizona. Right. That would have never happened. They would have never. In fact, they couldn't give it to him.
Yes, but don't you think at that time that they would have given it to Auston Matthews if that situation didn't take place?
But they couldn't, they couldn't give it to him. It would have been a public relations disaster. You could not do it. John Tavares showed up, perfect guy, wearing the, kids shot of him as a 9-year-old wearing Leaf jammies. It all fit.
And he was the captain of the Islanders for years.
Exactly.
He is.
Exactly. And you know what though? We're not in the locker room. We're in the locker room to do interviews, but that's it. But I think in pressure situations, I could see John Tavares standing up and talking to the group. I don't see Auston Matthews as that guy.
No.
Is it just me? Hey guys, let's get going.
Yeah,
let's fire it up.
But do you see John Tavares doing that?
I see him as a guy that speaks and people listen.
But is that the role of a captain? Even Ricky Vive was saying that is just a little. I think there's too much emphasis put on the captaincy, specifically in major markets like a hockey hotbed of Toronto.
Yeah, but to that point though, didn't you really feel like Matt Sundin was a captain?
Well, because he was far and away the best player on that team. Far and away. Who else would have been the captain? Did I see Wendell Clark as the captain? Yes, because he was the best player, and he was he had the grit, he had the determination. He was that team. Is Auston Matthews the Leafs,
or is he more of a Dion Phaneuf? I think he had it for 6 years.
What's the identity of the Leafs as they're heading into a new season?
Soft.
Yeah. What's Auston Matthews? He's a talented player, but does he show up when he needs to show up?
Well, I will. You know what? I gained a new respect for him. What he did, he was clearly ailing during that Boston series, that first round series this year, and he still ended up being their leading scorer.
Yeah. It's a business. This is a business move by MLSE, because if anybody ever says to them, what changes did you make? And they can say, we have a new coach, we have a new captain, our core four looks different.
Again, Brad Treliving turns the screws. CFL News, holy mackerel, Rourke is back in BC. And he's kind of shocked me. He has been really strong that he wants to be in the NFL. He has gone through several teams, several tryouts, and out of nowhere, after being released by the Atlanta Falcons this week, says that's it. Signs a 3-year deal with the BC Lions. Going to be the richest player in the Canadian Football League. But as last time I checked, the current quarterback of the BC Lions is Vernon Adams Jr., who is at the very least battling for 1 or 2 in terms of the most outstanding player in the league halfway through the season. Tim, does this shake you up?
I was quite surprised. However, when you look at that rundown, I know if you're listening in your car, you can't see this, but Bubs has a board up of all the teams that he's been with. And listen, 2 of those teams, he had a cup of coffee, not even. He didn't get any snaps with the New York Giants.
None.
He was the 4th stringer. Similar situation with the Falcons. He's not getting his proper due in the National Football League. And I think what he's recognized, and maybe the people around him have started to notice, I think he needs more on his resume to get more recognized. And I think he wants to play. He hasn't played in coming up on 2 years.
Yeah.
In an actual football game. Yeah, he had that exhibition game last year with the Jacksonville Jaguars and that viral moment with the Cowboys, which was amazing. And you're just like, okay, this guy is going somewhere. But then he was just really never given the proper opportunity. Mm-hmm. And he's 26. He needs snaps. He needs to play. He needs to be on the field. He recognizes that. Does this mean his NFL dream is over? No. Okay. He doesn't have to stay for all 3 years of this contract. Listen, if he has a good half of the season, which he probably will because he comes in as the most talented quarterback in the CFL, maybe he gets another chance in the offseason. Maybe it will take another year. Maybe it will take 3 years. But then he's only 29. He will still have an opportunity. How old was Doug Flutie when he actually went to the NFL?
Oh, you mean, yeah, he went to the NFL, when he went back.
He went back.
He was in his 30s for sure.
You
absolutely.
know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
The dream isn't over.
Yeah.
But I was surprised.
It was shocking. It was like out of nowhere.
And it stinks for Vernon Adams Jr.
Think about Vernon Adams Jr. Was in Hamilton here, was battling with the likes of Masoli. Dane Evans was new at the time. No one really knew what he could do. He could have been the 2nd string quarterback, maybe even challenged Masoli as the guy. And then all of a sudden, Johnny Manziel gets signed. And then June Jones sends him to Montreal. He goes to Montreal. Looks like he's got a season there, and then all of a sudden they sign Trevor Harris. Then they move him. And then they move him to BC, and you know what? Nathan Rourke's there. Rourke gets injured. He comes there, plays real well. Rourke goes away. He plays really well for 2 years, and now Rourke's back again.
Yeah.
The guy can't buy a break.
He had to know that Rourke was lingering. I didn't know this in some of the reporting through TSN, that actually Rourke was at a recent BC Lions game.
Yes, he was.
So Vernon Adams sees this guy here, and he knows it isn't going that well in the NFL. He had to know this was coming. But Bubs, as you know the CFL better than anybody, a talented quarterback in the CFL can get a job.
Yeah.
Okay? So it might not be this year, but come the offseason, if Nathan Rourke is still there will be plenty of other teams very interested in Vernon Adams Jr.
Well, it could be right here in Hamilton. Who knows? I mean, there's Saskatchewan. There are other places, I think, and I think he put it perfectly there, that sometime at the end of this season, there may be someone knocking on his door in a real hurry. Interesting that you just said off topic number 1 about Austin Matthews. This is a business. The BC Lions are hosting the Grey Cup this year. Mm-hmm. It just makes sense. Yeah. The guy from Victoria, BC, comes home. The Lions were having an outstanding season. They've dropped 3 in a row. He turns the corner. I can't believe that Rick Campbell, the head coach, says he expects him to start this Sunday.
So again, that goes to show that he I guess he watches BC Lions games. Yeah. He's quite in with the offense. He knows what's going on with the offense. So this came as a surprise to us. Maybe those within the organization knew that maybe this was coming, but that will be something if we see him on Sunday.
All right, Rourke, Vernon Adams Jr., I don't know if that's a controversy. We'll find out more. We do know in Hamilton the Tiger Cats have something going on. Bo Levi Mitchell throws an interception early in the first quarter of last week's loss to the Montreal Alouettes. Didn't play well the week before, threw a couple of picks in Hamilton against the same defending Grey Cup champions. Well, after that interception in the first quarter in Montreal, he's pulled in favor of Taylor Powell by head coach Scott Milanovich. First of all, did the benching was it deserved? And did you expect that the head coach after the game would anoint a new quarterback?
Obviously, within that quarterback room, there was stipulations put out that you can't turn over the ball. When you look at the stats, the CFL stats, if you can find them.
Don't start.
Bo's at the top for passing touchdowns. Like I know he's had a couple of bumps. He's had a good season. Compared to last year, I know there was injuries. He's been healthy and he's played well. He's turned over the ball. That's been an issue. Not the only issue with the Cats. As we know, there's a defense that can't stop anything. But it had to be. Bo had to know that he couldn't turn over the ball. That's why I think it. Yes, he said he was surprised, but when you can't turn when Coach Milanovich says you can't turn over the ball, and on the first drive you're turning over the ball, you had to know that they were going to be bringing in Powell. I was surprised because I tuned in late to the game and I saw Powell, and you just assumed that Bo was hurt, and then you realize that he's not hurt, and he got pulled that early. So that's what Bo has to work on. Like you can't be turning over the ball. Listen, they're 2-7. They're going to try anything they can to try and get something out of this season. And when you have Edmonton coming in, who've won 2 in a row, but are also 2-7, also at the basement of the West, you're gonna try whatever you can. So we'll see what Powell can do come Saturday night in Tim Hortons Field.
Yeah, it's funny because I think the one thing the Tiger Cats have going for them is that Bo and Powell are good friends. They go golfing together. They go eat lunch together and dinners. Like, they're good that way. I would think that even when Bo was starting, Taylor Powell, who started, I think, 9 games last year and won 4 of them, he wants to be the starter. I think anyone wants to be the starter. But I feel like Bo, I don't know if Bo got gypped off a little bit. And you're right. But I always say this about interceptions. Not every interception is the quarterback's fault. The receiver runs a wrong route. The ball got tipped. There are other things that happens. Now, I will give this, Scott Milanovich, a head coach, he's an offensive coordinator also on that team. People forget that. So he's also highly involved in the work of the quarterbacks. There's clearly something that he sees. We've known for the entire time that Scott Milanovich has been here, that Bo and him don't always see eye to eye, right? And Bo has kind of talked about that early in the season about how hard he is on him, but it's going to make him a better quarterback. So you're right. Maybe he had to know that you throw one more pick in or throw one more bad pick, and that could be that could be curtains.
We had Bo on at the end of last season, and right after the Coach O got rearranged and setting up top, and like Coach O and Bo were buds.
Yes, they were.
They were pals.
Yep.
If Coach O was still coaching this team, would he have got pulled?
I don't know, but remember what happened in Montreal at the end of the season in the playoff game with Coach Steinauer on the sideline. Bo never got put into the game until the game was over, last 5 minutes of the game. And remember what Bo's reaction was about, even like, if you're not going to play me, why am I even here? Mm-hmm. Right? So
come Saturday, though, if Powell doesn't produce, Bo's back in the game.
You could be right. The only thing with this is that they're playing the Elks. Okay, Bo Levi Mitchell in his entire career, his entire Hall of Fame career, has never thrown 5 touchdown passes except for once, against the Edmonton Elks a couple of weeks ago in Edmonton, and they're playing the Elks. That's what, to me, also makes this transition or change somewhat strange. Olympic ratings. Were you watching, folks? In North America, ratings, a winner. NBC, huge. Canada, massive. Folks love the Olympics. We couldn't say that for the last 3 or 4 Olympic Games, winter or summer. Tim, what happened and why the spike?
I'm a huge Olympic booster supporter. I support the athletes because they work their tails off for 4 years in sports that we don't care about, and then everybody's watching for that short 2-week time frame. So I really enjoy the Olympics. I'm trying to rack my brain around why everybody was so interested this time around. My mom, not a huge sports fan, couldn't get enough of the Olympics. Any friends, not huge sports fans, couldn't get enough of the Olympics. Yes, because it's more than sports, because it's the storytelling, and we've talked about this on this podcast before. That's why I love sports, is the storytelling of sports, and you get no better than the storytelling within the Olympics because of the drama and the sacrifice and the family tales that are told to get to that moment. Paris had something to do with it. It's the city of love. It's the city of lights. Architecturally, the look of it. Even like, I'm not normal. I call marathons. I enjoy a marathon, but watching a marathon at home as they're running through the streets of Paris and seeing all the historical elements that they're running past, I think that had something to do with it. I think the time zone too, 6 hours ahead, worked kind of perfectly, specifically for somebody who works the morning show, because you had some live sports in the morning.
No,
you
even
get the
for me, it
okay,
worked
so
well.
so we do work. Yeah. So why did you like the time zone stuff? Because
everything was done by the time I started. So it wasn't like I'm on the fly and things are I could sit there and construct my sportscast. Now, of course, the stupid restrictions that affect both of us, and you've got your editor drawing pictures, right?
Yeah. Honestly, I will say because there was a lot of cooperation with other worlds and a lot of pooling in our journalism world.
Yes.
So we did have some access to things that we have not had access in the past.
Good point.
Which was really, really good. That we did get to actually talk to some local athletes that did really well. So that was memorable for me, and I know it was for you to have a little bit more access when it comes to that.
Yeah.
But listen, we're going to watch, we're going to pay attention because we just love sport. Yeah. Why were casual fans, why were 7 out of 10 Canadians watching these Olympics? Did it have something to do with Paris? Did it have something to do with the past 2 Olympics in Beijing and then in Tokyo? They were affected by the pandemic, so no crowds. No crowds, so there wasn't as much, I don't know, pomp and circumstance around it. I don't really know, but I do know going forward in 2028, well, even first in 2026, they're in Milan. So again, you're getting that same time zone in Italy. And then they're coming to the second largest city in the United States, one of the biggest cities in the world, in Los Angeles. That's going to be huge.
You know they're going to go all out. Like, they are going to spend a lot of money. Countries like the United States, when they host these events, it doesn't matter. Like, money is no issue. And Los Angeles, obviously, you saw what was going on with Snoop Dogg and NBC and how much money they put into this.
Does that have to play into it? Can we credit Snoop Dogg for
the States?
For bringing back for the States? Yeah, we got it here too, but I was generally watching the local CBC stuff. But I also do like to tip into NBC to see what they're covering and hearing, and even and this is another thing I want to talk about too. Having superstars involved in things also gets eyeballs. This is why superstars are so important. We'll get to the basketball stuff in a second, but when you have a swim team in Canada that is doing some pretty special things, including one swimmer who has done something that no Canadian has ever done before in a 17-year-old in Summer McIntosh, you don't have to be a sports fan, a casual fan, not a fan of sports at all to really fall in love with that storyline.
Yeah, you're right. You're right on a lot of things here. First of all, Paris, I think, was a big win. I appreciated that they tried something different, having them come in on the River Seine. Like, I thought that, you could talk about the conditions of the water, which are another situation, but I thought that was different, and I know it was a hit and miss with some people, but I appreciate doing something different. The helium balloon as the actual Olympic torch. I thought that was really cool, and I thought the fact that how cool would that be in France that every night that thing raises and is burning in the sky? How cool would that be? As you said, the city of lights. How cool was the beach volleyball by the Eiffel Tower? How cool did that look? So I appreciate that they tried some different things and had a different look and had some different sports that might have attracted a younger crowd, Tim.
The breaking was cool. I'm not a huge fan of judge sports because I don't know what's going on. It was cool to have them in there because it does get different eyeballs. And Phil Wizard winning gold, it's so neat. And then you have the Australian break dancer that has gone viral for some of her moves. So that's all fantastic. I love the sports where you're just like, I don't know, beat me. We're gonna say ready, set, go, and you have to beat me. Those are the sports I love, but I just love the Olympic movement to begin with.
In just one last thing on this, in terms of, was it 27 medals?
Yeah,
27 medals, 17 won by the ladies.
Right.
We got to pull it up, guys.
Right. Huh? Well, going forward too, like that's, and I think this is the first Olympic ever that there was gender parity. Yes. In the same amount of men and women, which, okay, that has maybe something to do with it as well. You know what I mean? And what the ladies are doing, pretty special. I'm
getting ready for the TICAT game and just kind of slipped about when the 4x100 timing was. Okay. And I know you were watching intently.
No. Okay, I got a story too.
I got a text from my mom going, "We won!" Like my mom was into it. She was like, "It was so exciting." Yeah. And I was like, "Oh my goodness! I forgot about the timing of this."
Oh man, so you didn't see it live.
I didn't.
Oh, it's so I was in my car. I was in the car, and I was just like, "What time is that on?" And I turned. I was able to get it on the radio just through an app, and I heard it listening to it.
Wow.
Mark Lee. Bringing it on home.
Wow.
And I was just like doing this like crazy stuff in the car. People are like, what is going on with that guy? You just get so into it, and we'd had our sprinters had a tough time, specifically, well, the men not qualifying for any of the finals, and then they're able to produce that in the 4x1. So that was the highlight for me. Obviously, what Summer did, but the 4x1 coming from nowhere to be able to win that gold medal, led by Andre DeGrasse, is
yeah, for
special.
sure. Well, once I actually did see it, and of course the trash talk that went on with the United States, and then again for me the women's rugby I thought was great because I've kind of been getting into rugby, and to watch them play that sevens is so exciting. And of course with Summer McIntosh, that's just universal for everyone. So from the highs of the highs to the possible lows of the lows, and the Canadian basketball team, which many expected to be in a medal situation, could have been gold, maybe silver, bronze at the very least. I'll ask you a tough question. Was the men's Canadian basketball team a complete flop?
No. Because a year ago at this time, we were just so excited that they got into the Olympics. When they got into the Olympics and in their group play, they went 3-0. So it's funny how our expectations get heightened just by certain things. But then you get in there and yeah, you're 3-0 in those group games, but you have to show up when it matters. So was it a flop? No. Was it disappointing? Big time. Specifically how they played against France. Listen, France was in the gold medal game and they gave the States a real run for their money in that. But I just did not like the way that they played in that game. Shea was great. He did his job. There was some other people on that roster that I just did not perform the way they should have under that spotlight. So that was disappointing for
someone
me.
That's won an NBA championship with the last name Murray?
Yeah. I'm concerned about Jamal Murray because he didn't look good really at all in that tournament. So if I'm a Denver Nuggets fan, I might be concerned about, I don't know if there's injury issues there or I don't know what's going on. He was not himself in that tournament. I don't know because if he wasn't the guy, because Shea was the guy, where he was like coming off the bench and not used to doing that. But Dylan Brooks, like what happened to Dylan? He was so great in the World Cup when they were able to qualify, and he was good in the tournament. But then again, he just was not there in that France game. There was somebody. Lou Dort is another guy, just two really great defenders in the NBA. Did not show up, and that was disappointing. So flop, no. Just a massive disappointment. Yeah. Yeah,
it's a disappointment for me because to me that team should have medaled. That team should have meddled. And you said they rolled through, and I think they shouldn't roll through, but they did what was required in the round robin. And you've just figured France, yes, a good team. And what kills me against the loss against France, it wasn't the NBA French guys that did all the damage. Guys we've never heard of. And that gives we should also respect people that play in other leagues, Yabusele, guys like that we've never heard of that stepped up and led that team. Was it not Victor Wembanyama that did the damage against Canada? Canada had some other issues as well, too. I mean, no one at the center position that could really guard. We were challenged in each game, even in victory, at that center position. Nothing down low in terms of size. And, yeah, I mean, when you're just not shooting the ball and you're shooting 30% in the first half, it's not good. And I know people are complaining about the referees, and yeah, there was a big disparity in the calls, but they all evened out by the end of the game. It always does in basketball for the most part.
They didn't deserve to win that game.
No, they didn't.
Did not deserve to win that game.
They didn't.
So that's the issue there. And I think, selfishly, as Canadian basketball fans, we wanted them to face the U.S. in that gold medal game.
Oh,
we wanted that to be us, because we're the little brother. We're always the little brother. So then we can't get rid of that when they're talking about our players and how they're world class, which they are. But then to go up against the U.S. and to see how we can do against the U.S., that's what I really wanted to see. And it was just a shame that we didn't get to see that.
People forget that Canada, number 2. Obviously, United States, number 1. Number 2 in the amount of players that are in the NBA are Canadian, right? And that number is just going to get bigger and bigger. It will never obviously equal the States. We are a basketball country now. There are expectations.
So going forward,
yep.
Expectations are there now.
Yep.
So you have to get back there, and you have to perform when you're there.
Blue Jays are rolling with the youth. Wagner, Horowitz. Who are these guys? Will you be watching, Tim, for the rest of the season?
I'll be watching because I'm a fan. Do I care? No. Which is a bummer, because we've gotten used to meaningful baseball in August and September. And for the longest time, for those years and years and years, we did not have meaningful baseball in August and September. We just looked forward to a Roy Halladay start and what he could do when he was trotted out there every fifth day. So it's great to see Vladdy has come alive. Too little, too late. He's just going to be adding some zeros to the amount of money that he's going to get paid, because he's not going anywhere now, because we know the potential that he can have. So it's good. It's good to see that. It's good to see Will Wagner, sure, son of Billy Wagner, great. Okay, so we're 2 games in. They're playing the LA Angels. Okay, what happens when he goes up against some premium talent? And we'll see that. It's fun to see. Do I care? Like I was trying to say to myself, do I care? Do I want them to get back to 500? Does that matter to me? Should that matter as a fan of the organization? Because it hinders you, because you're not getting as high a draft pick. Like, we know this season is a wash. The worst place to finish is in the middle, because you don't get anything for finishing in the middle. Now, granted, I was on vacation last week when Shapiro was talking that. I did hear some sound clips from it and sound bites from it, because I don't think his pal Atkins is going anywhere. Well, Shapiro's not going anywhere because the money that they're making.
He's a businessman.
So we know that, and he's brought in a lot of money for Rogers, and that's what they care about. It is odd that Atkins is still around, and he's
not
could be
going anywhere.
No, I know, but somebody needs to fall on the sword for what happened this season and the decisions that were made this season. Somebody does. And
how could they have gone into the season with such? I know they went all out, at least we think, on trying to get Shohei
Ohtani.
Like, I get that, I respect that, but your biggest signing was Turner and guy IKF,
right? We're now gone.
We're now gone,
right?
And the time will only tell if the return was worth it.
Yeah.
Tim, I hate, and I know that you're a big Leaf fan, but the Blue Jays are at your heart.
God, yeah.
I think the Blue Jays are in for some lean years. There was a pocket of time. Think about this. where the Boston Red Sox were horrible. They're third in the division now. Last 2 years, they've been horrible. Through 2 of the last 3 years, the Yankees were horrible. Remember when Baltimore was like we're going to cross when the Blue Jays were like, I don't know, over the season series, they were like 13-2 against Baltimore? Those days are done. These are lean years coming in Toronto. And with all these things and grand things that they did to the Dome, like, are people going to be there to watch?
They had money for Shohei Ohtani last spring?
Yep.
Or no, so not last spring, last winter. What about finding some money for Juan Soto this winter?
Ooh.
What about trying to back up the Brinks truck and try to bring Juan Soto to Toronto? That's what you need to do. Now, will he leave? He's going to be a free agent. He's going to the open market. The Yankees always always have the money for these guys.
Are you going to take care of Bo and Vladdy?
Are you taking care of Vladdy? Are you taking care of Bo? I don't know. This has been coming into this season. I was always a Bo guy, even over a Vladdy guy, because he was Mr. Consistency. Yeah, he had a couple of so starts to the season, but he always finished strong, and he was always in the top 5 of hits and runs scored, and this year has been an disaster for one Bo Bichette. Now, I know there's injuries involved, but even attitude-wise, I found that he's almost just even some interviews that he's done like outside with other organizations talking about interest and he'd be willing to be traded and San Francisco would be nice to go to and just stuff like that. You're just like, I don't know. You got your foot out the door here, Bo. Like, are you dedicated to the cause, what they're trying to do in Toronto? So I would be fine. At this point, well, you're not gonna trade him now because you're selling low, right? Because he had a horrible year, so he's back for another year. But that's what they got to make. If they're going to compete in 2025, like they're saying, they need to make a splash on the open market. And if you're able to get Juan Soto, that would be a splash.
So as the Blue Jays slide into oblivion, we're just 3 weeks away from the beginning of the National Football League. It's back again, folks. It is the biggest of them all. And, of course, there is more pressure to win in that sport than any other sport. And, of course, it's always centered on the quarterbacks. I'll just pick out a couple guys there, Tim. Maybe there's someone else on your list. Josh Allen in Buffalo, Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, Dak Prescott in Dallas, and your boy Aaron Rodgers in New York City with the Jets. Who's under the most pressure to get the job done in the National Football League?
It's got to be Dak. Has to be Dak. He plays for America's team. You know what I mean? I'm not a Cowboys fan, but he makes a boatload of money. He's never won, and the pressure is on him. I'm sure Lamar Jackson too. For sure, he's had wonderful regular seasons, but he's never been able to do it when it counts most. You have somebody in his division that does it each and every year, in Patrick Mahomes. so you look at him and what Patrick Mahomes has been able to evolve into. You know what I mean? He was a gunslinger, but he wasn't a gunslinger last year because he didn't have the offensive talent to help him with that. But he was able to develop and figure it out and how to win football games, which is the key when it comes down to crunch time and playoff time. And Josh Allen, another one that is having trouble figuring out how to get it in winning time. When it comes to Aaron Rodgers, the Jets. They have a lot of talent, but they're the Jets.
It's right.
So I don't know if there is pressure on Aaron Rodgers because there's always expectations because they play it in a major media market, and he is Aaron Rodgers, and he'll say things that will drive people crazy, and I think he does it all on purpose. I don't think there's a pressure on him as much. So I would go if I'm ranking those top, I would go Dak 1, Lamar 2, Josh 3, and Aaron 4.
You know, I'm kind of with you, but I'm going to lean more towards the guy in Baltimore and then the two-time MVP and Lamar Jackson. And like, you have to believe with that kind of talent and him, being at home in the AFC Championship and again just not getting the job done. And you're right about You're right about the guy in KC and Patrick Mahomes, and that he did not have the wealth of talent, and Lamar and Hill, Tyreek Hill, you know what? There's that guy that was just going to beat people, right? He did it with the least amount of talent and an aging tight end as well too, and found ways. And I thought his leadership was better too. Kind of became more of a likable guy for me for some reason, even though I'm a huge Bills fan, and it's easy to not like the Chiefs. Trust me. But you know what's hilarious? In the AFC East, you also have Tua Tagovailoa as well too, that just signed this massive contract. He's under the gun, right? He's a guy that hasn't always been there. Health has really hindered him as well too. But the funny, Dan Lebitard threw out this question the other day. Which team has won the least amount of AFC East championships? And of course, the AFC East is made up of the Bills, the Dolphins, the Jets, and the New England Patriots. Your obvious answer would be?
Would be the Jets.
Would be the Jets. And it should be the Jets, but it's amazing to think that they are the Jets. They've been in that division since day one. Wow. And then you have the Colts, who aren't even in that division any longer, and have still won more division titles than the Jets.
Yeah.
Right? It's crazy. I mean, it's just, I say this because it's New York City, and they're starving for a winner. And Aaron Rodgers comes in there with that pomp and circumstance. And remember, game number 1 lasted 3 or 4 plays before becoming lost for the season. So
quickly, what about Russell Wilson?
Oh, wow.
Playing for a major franchise like Pittsburgh.
Wow, good choice.
Had a horrendous year in Denver, fresh starts in Pittsburgh. He's not the same quarterback that he once was in Seattle, but is there pressure on him, or is there no pressure on him? And we'll see what he can do.
I think you know what? Maybe I think there's less pressure on him because he's been sort of downgraded in what happened in Denver, which was a complete disaster. And then when they hired the new head coach, who clearly didn't like him, it just did not work out. I think what helps there is that the Pittsburgh Steelers are more of a running franchise, and I think that will take a little pressure off his shoulders. But you're right, though. He's a high-priced guy in a marquee football city. And much will be expected of him, especially in times of, competing against the likes of Baltimore in that same AFC East or AFC North division that also has Cleveland and Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. A lot of fun.
Man, we were agreeing a lot of things, weren't we? We need to take other ends. We got to be arguing more.
I mean, I don't know if it's about the conflict all the time, but you're right though. That's why we love the sports discussion, right? You never really know, right? Like you can predict. I've also said this before. Sometimes why I don't do pools and stuff like that. I feel like the more you know, the least you know in many ways, right? Like you start to look at angles and different things, but at the end of the game, and they say in the NFL all the time, it's only till they play the game. Yeah. That's why we play the game. We can make all these predictions. We don't know what's going to happen. Like, what's going to happen? John Tavares could have maybe the best season he's had because maybe he doesn't feel the pressure of being the Leafs captain any longer, right? Because he's always criticized. He's always criticized. Well, he's the captain. He should be better, Bubs.
What's going to happen with AM34 now that he does have the pressure? We'll see.
Yeah, because guys like us are going to be sticking them. Not that he did before. What happened?
Every game, though. Every game he's got to talk.
Right? He can't escape from the media anywhere and go out the back door at ACC any longer. Tim, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, buddy. Good seeing you, man. Well, till our next conversation over at your desk, because that happens pretty much every day.
For people that don't know, like we're about 15 feet apart, and then I love it when something happens and I turn around and go, "Hey, Bolen, blah 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 blah," right?
Yeah. Because we work different hours, but there's always there's a little bit of a lap over, so we got like a half hour to kind of go through some things.
It's so true, because I love, like you said, you're only about half an hour, and when I walk in, I'm like, I don't even say hello. I just like, what? Like, blah, 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 blah. That's it.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Yeah, man. Cheers.
And that's the Sportsline podcast for the day, and you've just seen and heard we love talking sports, and especially with people that have all kinds of passion when it comes to sports. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote, the Sportsline podcast do want to hear from you. Hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe button, and if you have something to say, please comment. For the outstanding people behind the scenes that make the Sportsline podcast possible. Thank you so very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.